The last time Corey Harrison truly slowed down might not have been on a beach, but in a hospital bed in January 2026, when a shocking image surfaced showing him bruised, swollen, and wrapped in bandages with 11 broken ribs after his third motorcycle crash. A moment that felt less like bad luck and more like the result of a long chain of risks and choices that had been building for years. And to understand how he reached that point, you have to go back to where it all began, in Las Vegas, Nevada, where Corey Harrison was born on April 27, 1983, into a family already deeply connected to the pawn business through his father, Rick Harrison, and his grandfather, Richard Benjamin Harrison, a man who would later become known to millions as the Old Man. Yet, despite what seemed like a strong legacy on the surface, his early life was anything but stable, as his parents separated when he was just 2 years old, leaving him and his younger brother Adam Harrison to grow up in a fractured home. That soon changed again when his father remarried and expanded the family, creating an environment where stability was hard to find, and where Corey eventually turned to the one place that stayed consistent, the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, which opened in 1989 on Las Vegas Boulevard, and quickly became more than just a business to him. It became his second home, and the place where he would learn life lessons far beyond his age, as by 9 years old he was already working real hours, doing real tasks like cleaning glass cases, polishing jewelry, and observing the constant flow of customers bringing in items filled with history, stories, and sometimes deception. And through this environment, he developed an early understanding that value is not always obvious, and that people are often as complex as the items they try to sell. And during those same formative years, he built a lasting friendship with Austin "Chumley" Russell, a bond that started casually but would later become one of the most recognizable partnerships on television. Although at the time they were just kids growing up in Las Vegas, unaware of the future waiting for them. As Corey grew older, school began to lose its importance to him because he had already found his path inside the pawn shop, leading him to eventually drop out of high school and fully commit to the business, though he briefly experimented with other jobs like construction and electrical work in an attempt to prove he could succeed outside of his family's shadow. But those jobs lacked the excitement and unpredictability that defined the pawn shop environment, so he returned with a new mindset, determined not just to work but to lead, eventually stepping into a management role where he oversaw daily operations and managed more than 30 employees, marking a major transition from a kid doing chores to a man making decisions. But that growth came with mistakes, including a costly one at age 18 when he purchased 6 fake Rolex watches in a single week, losing money and confidence in the process. Yet that failure became a turning point, pushing him to study authenticity in detail and sharpen his ability to recognize even the smallest signs of counterfeit items, a skill that would later define his expertise. Everything changed in 2009 when Pawn Stars premiered on the History Channel, transforming the family business into a global phenomenon almost overnight as millions of viewers tuned in to watch the unique mix of history, negotiation, and family dynamics, turning the shop into a tourist destination and placing Corey in the spotlight as Big Hoss, a nickname that reflected both his role and his personality, as someone who kept operations running smoothly behind the scenes. But while the show brought fame and success, it also brought pressure and personal struggles, including a serious battle with his weight as he reached over 400 pounds and faced a life-changing warning from a doctor in 2010 about the risk of diabetes, which led him to make a drastic decision to undergo lap band surgery, financed through credit cards. A move that paid off as he rapidly lost weight and eventually shed nearly 200 pounds, completely transforming his body and regaining abilities he had lost, like snowboarding and simple physical movements, giving him a renewed sense of control over his life. Yet even with this transformation, challenges continued to follow him, including a 2011 incident in Big Bear Lake, California, where an argument escalated into an arrest after he was accused of pushing a deputy and a security guard, an event that hinted at a pattern of impulsive behavior that would resurface later in 2023 when he was stopped by police in Las Vegas for alleged impaired driving, where he denied being intoxicated, refused field sobriety tests, and later agreed to a blood test whose results were never publicly disclosed, leaving the situation unresolved in the public eye. Alongside these incidents was his ongoing relationship with motorcycles, which seemed to bring repeated danger into his life, with crashes in 2011 and 2014, the latter causing a severe hand injury that required surgery with plates and screws. Yet despite these warnings, he continued riding as if drawn to the risk. Around the same period, he was also linked to a controversy involving a rental RV returned with damages estimated between $20,000 and $30,000, leading to disputes and negative attention that added to his growing list of public issues. While his professional life remained highly visible, his personal life struggled to maintain stability as he married his high school girlfriend in 2009 during the rise of Pawn Stars, only to divorce in 2015 under the weight of fame and demanding schedules, before remarrying in 2017 and divorcing again in 2018, showing a pattern of relationships that moved quickly and ended just as fast. Then came one of the most significant emotional losses of his life in June 2018, when his grandfather, Richard Benjamin Harrison, passed away after battling illness, leaving a deep void for Corey, who had worked alongside him for over a decade and considered him not just family but a mentor and best friend. Later that same year, Corey welcomed his son into the world, naming him after his grandfather as a way to carry forward his legacy. But the family faced another devastating blow in January 2024 when his brother Adam Harrison died from an accidental overdose in Las Vegas, a tragedy that deeply affected the entire family, especially Rick Harrison, who had tried repeatedly to help his son overcome addiction through rehab and other measures, a loss that brought lasting grief and reflection. By 2025, Corey reached a point where he felt disconnected from the life he had been living, admitting that after years on Pawn Stars, he no longer felt like himself, but rather like a character stuck in a version of his past that no longer matched who he'd become, leading him to make a bold decision to leave Las Vegas and move to Tulum, Mexico, in search of a quieter, slower lifestyle, away from cameras and constant pressure, a move that suggested he was finally seeking peace rather than success. Yet even in this new environment, the past seemed to follow him, as in January 2026, he suffered his most serious motorcycle crash yet, resulting in 11 broken ribs and weeks of recovery, serving as a stark reminder that some patterns are difficult to escape, raising the question of whether Corey Harrison is running from something or simply trying to find something he has never fully had. Because his story is not just about fame or controversy, but about cycles of risk, reinvention, loss, and escape repeating over time. And perhaps that is why the idea of the beach holds such meaning in his journey, as it represents stillness, a rare state in his life where nothing needs to be negotiated, sold, or proven, a place without cameras, expectations, or chaos, just quiet. Leaving one final question hanging. Will he ever truly find that peace, or will the next chapter once again pull him back into the storm?